Hello, everyone, to all the teams, of the rest of the teams here in Latin America and outside, and thanks again for the coordination of the alliance and the network. We want to present you finally also our work after this month of the research. The name finally that we give to this proposal and to the system is how to face the digital gender violence in Chile through the development of a system that help us to report, monitor, and respond orientation based on a feminist chatbot prototype. So I will let you share why first. The first thing is why we do this research. Probably digital gender violence in this moment is one of the key issues in the problematical of face lots of millions of women, particularly in our region, that increased in the last decade. Many of our countries has a lack of information about real database or real data about how deep and the implication and the impact of all these different types of digital violence in our countries. So the first focus of our research, we were really aware how to understand how a technology tool based on artificial intelligence help us to kind of alert, report, give guidance, and of course provide information about all the different type of situation in digital gender violence situation. But of course, we need to narrow the scope of the problematic, because this process, this kind of situation, varied from time to time and are very dynamic. So we proposed the development of a solution based on also a conversational agent, a kind of chatbot, but using feminist principles, and also putting in the standard the needs and the contact of the women. For this, we are going to explain how we, in this month, we have to change also during the research process, also receiving the feedback that we have from women that were affected or face situation of digital gender violence. So the methodology is based in user research experience, as well as UX, where we introduce and apply feminist and also co-design principles. Will also give us key information to be used for the recommendation and the develop of this first proposal that you're going to see. And finally, we propose a kind of basic international flow or workflow for the design of this chatbot, but also the general considerations and the general requirements that the system complete has to have to work for all the process. So our methodological process includes, as I mentioned before, a feminist UX research divided in two phases. The phase one, it was to ask and to conduct interviews to feminist organizations and users. We make a small sample for this case. This is because this is a qualitative technique that allows to enter into the stories or the journey that many women has to face when they face digital violence online in social media platforms or social network platforms, etc. The phase two includes the interview with different stakeholders that for us was a really key stakeholder that also will be able to contribute as a collaborator in the future. We are talking about feminist and women rights organization experts in different areas of data science analysis, or listening in social media that have conducted previous research in this area, for example, trying to understand how occurs digital violence situation in Twitter platform, for example, and some authorities that also are important to connect in the future to create a definite prototype system. Also, we have a part that includes literature review, because as we mentioned before, even we don't have data specific, we have some guidelines and orientation that allow us to understand all the implications that has a cycle of digital gender violence. And of course, we also introduced a benchmark, a very small and brief benchmark that allows us also to include the experience that other projects and chatbot feminists are active today, not only in Latin America, but in the rest of the world, can give us as example of experience previous using this type of technology to give an answer to this. So I just want to mention that understanding digital gender violence in the Chilean context, as in many of our Latin American countries, is to understand that this is still a situation, a social problematic, a gender balance problematic that has no mechanism necessary to give an answer or even to give a companionship. As I mentioned before, there's one of the main issues that we have in our countries that we don't have systematized or official data that help us to use this to push public policies, or for example, some law bills that are trying to kind of give a legal framework that allow us to start to, for example, to the legal system, initiate an investigation, etc. Of course, when we talk about there is no public policy, that means that, for example, our institutionality also doesn't have the capacity or doesn't have the mechanism to receive or to also to report all this data and integrate it in the public system that face in general the gender violence situation is in our country. And of course, in many of the cases, there is a weak institutional response. But that doesn't mean that civil society organization, particularly feminist organization, having some way to take care of this situation. And what happened in Chile is finally is the feminist organization that try to give some answer, some kind of activities, for example, workshops, or even attention one-to-one in a very precarious way that doesn't allow them to really give a full answer. So the idea starts from there to understand that we are not trying to, with this, to trying that this chatbot works with the institutionality, but instead of that, help really the civil society and the feminist platforms and collectives and organizations that today are trying to give an answer to the problematic in this various dimensions that we say. So I want to talk to you in this part about the UX research process, because this is where our research allows us to integrate some feminist principles, as I mentioned before. So the first phase one, it was to create with the problematic, understanding the problematic, and then they give us also the recommendation and the orientation that will help us to, sorry, my connectivity is not so good, so I'm going to turn off my camera a little bit. So as I mentioned before, this gives us the opportunity to hear the research process is a research process based in the persons. We want to call them persons because they are not users, even in the technological vocabulary you are going to understand as that. But we are talking about that our goal in this phase was to approach in the different interviews that we conduct the emotionality and experience that they have in order to distance the technology from the sexual and neutral space from which is often see, for example, a chatbot, etc. So to do this, we divide the interviews in 3 moments. We talk about how this implies to talk about what happened with the head, with the body, with the hands of the people, trying to understand what is the journey. The journey is the experience that a woman that says digital gender violence experience in one moment, in different moment of the last 6 months or the last 1 year, because many of our movement interview face that in just recent years. And finally, to have some final ideas that the woman or the person give us. With this, we create this journey map. Sorry, we try to put it and try to give as much space as we can here. You can have a more a specific approach in the paper that that we send. But indeed, all this journey map help us to understand how is the process that a woman that face digital gender violence then has to through or pass during all these 5 steps. First is what happened with interact with the social media and receive over the social platform or the digital platform, and then receive violence, some common violence, as we mentioned before, that could be some cyberbullying or harassment or all the kind of types. Then what happened when she tried to confront that violence? And the typical things that we saw is to block the profiles or try to report to the social network or the social media platform. But one important also finding that we understand is in many cases, the woman doesn't want to give any answer or give any response, and they don't want to respond to the aggression. And that means that probably they decide to block themselves to participate in social media, or even to kind of disappear, definitely, or for some period. So we are trying to understand that process, because where we are proposing is that the chatbot system and the alert system, the report system, works with the willing of a woman, of a person, to report that. So understand what make them to give a response or no. It was very important for this process. And then we understand the follow-up action that probably in many of these cases was, for example, many of them tell someone very close, a friend. Few of them contacts a feminist organization, because also it's a lack of information about how to act in these cases, or who can help you in these cases. And that's the key main issue of this problematic. And of course, in all this process, we understand also that in few cases, for example, a lawyer or a psychological also counseling is contact, because also there is a lack of information on who can help you in both dimensions. The legal, because it's also the belief that probably this is a case for the legal system, or it can be pursued, for example, for the police, which is not in the case of Chile. It's not considered a crime type, etc. And also this occur for the contacts or the network of contacts that the woman has. So if it's a woman, it's very isolated, because also this process allows us to understand that all this experience is lived and faces in a very individual experience. It's not a shared experience, because unless you are a very well-known activist, for example, or a very well-known woman, you live this in your own individuality. And here we find also a very important key finding for the research, which is the collective dimension that we can also create in this platform that we are trying to create. And then, of course, is all the outcome or the consequences, the implication for the digital gender violence, as many of the previous research, as we know, is that you have emotional and psychological implication, but also is a freedom of expression implication, because of course is an attempt finally that give you to close all your social media networks or your social media platforms, or finally don't want to again to talk in or to have your voice in that space. So the phase 2 include asking 7 different stakeholders that would also were interviewed in the quality of expert or person that in the future help us to understand how we can collaborate in the different stages that creating a system like this implicates. So we asked for the feminist activists that are part of a network that in Chile we call them Elena Cafarena. Elena Cafarena network is a network of feminist organization and collective and very small group from all over the country. The previous interview were done thanks to them, to the articulation of them. We have 5 interviews with from different women that allow us to understand, and we talk with the coordination of this network as well, and also with researchers in data mining that have previous experience in social media platform, and also legal and police representative in our country. So the key recommendation from them, it was very also useful and effective for the proposal that we are going to present them, that understand that, for example, a system or a chatbot based on artificial or software or technology should be used to improve the data generation from the reported cases in order to create some patterns on trends. We are talking about, for example, frequency of attacks, the recurrency of the attacks, etc. This has a potential also to enhance a monitoring or alert system or platform, for example, in the way of attractive light. Also, we consider that recommendation, and also it was too important to create protocols concerning access to information and all the report of the alternatives. So that's why the system that we are going to talk is based again with 2 ideas. There will be a chatbot feminist, a feminist chatbot, a conversational agent to report the case that will give you a guidance with approximately 9 steps, as we are going to show in the next slide, that give information guidance about how to report. The chatbot will receive your report of this digital gender case. Also give you a guidance about how also to provide evidence, because reporting or have a kind of strategic evidence, for example, a screenshot, a profile, etc., help in all these cases to understand where the attack came from, but also given the legal and emotional consent. The chatbot in this case will be based in a web platform, because the web platform will have a software based on artificial intelligence to start to create database reports. Our main idea in this part is be able to create data visualization of the cases. This will be very helpful for all the political incidents that many organizations still are doing to have, for example, laws about digital gender balance, but also to support public policies in the future, of course, in the present of future of all this. But also will provide some general database for all the researchers and other activists, and also for journalists that are investigating these cases. So indeed, the platform will create their own knowledge, their own database from the cases that is received. In the next, in this slide, we also try to summarize the different steps that we are going to have as a basis to create all the flow of flow that this chatbot should, to understand how to guide the women step by step, from the moment that the case is reported, and then all that information that received the chatbot will be help us to create the database from the cases. This will allow us to have the data visualization. Of course, all this is under a privacy, anonymous situation for that part, and the generation of report for decision making, for decision makers, as we mentioned before, public sector, civil society, advocacy, etc. And in the interface that help the women that is face all these situations is try to give guidance on possible action. This action today is how to report in the platform itself, but also in the chat platform itself, but also how to report in the social media. This also is important because many of the social media or the social platform or the digital platform are changing the rules or the mechanisms to report. Not also very clear for all of the women that, all of the persons that try to report, how to report the case in the Chilean police that in these cases just try to receive, but doesn't have the evidence or doesn't have the legal mechanism to have a legal case or have a criminal research, for example, investigation. So we also try to give to be very clear about that, and how to seek legal and of course psychological and emotional support. But for from the older research that includes to create a woman, give them a safe space that help us to understand and to give some companionship. And of course, we are trying to see how this community of women will be accompanied in a first moment by a real person that acts as a moderator, but also that gives some follow of the cases, because we also we want to create that idea that the system will not forget your cases, but also we give you a kind of continuity connection, what happened or what more else we can do with the case. The archetype prototype of this prototype in the first phase will be adult women that have public or political participation in social media. We're talking particularly with activists, journalists, public women, social leaders, women rights defenders in this first phase, because of course we need to do a phase where we kind of test the prototype, and with different studies that we have already show us that these are today in Chile one of the main cases we are facing, because in Chile we have in this moment also a political crisis, different social crises that expose more of these different women in the situation of digital gender violence. We mentioned this because, of course, our ideal objective will be try to attend to all of the cases, but we understand for the first phase we need to focus on one archetype profile. So the last part is a consideration where all this system, when we talk about the system, is the web-based platform where the chatbot will work. And as I mentioned before, the system will operate in all these phases in a web platform. We are not thinking about the chatbot use, for example, a message system like WhatsApp or Telegram yet. We want to see if this work in a base platform, in order to also that give us the opportunity to start to design also the system that we operate the creation of the database. And of course, the design process will be under also the UX principles and all the usability process. We are thinking also in women that, for example, have some disabled condition. Okay, so also the technological process understand that The process of the information to report the case will be automatic in order, as I mentioned, to give us the chance to create reports that distinguish type of attacks, keywords associated with the situation of harassment, aggression, etc., accounts of aggressor profiles, the frequency of the cases, the recurrences of the cases, etc. All this in the idea to create alerts. If we see there is occurring a massive attack or specific attack, so one specific profile women, the system will be able to create a kind of alert. For example, if we are facing a political crisis or any other situation that really put in danger to some women that are actively participating in the different platforms. The database generated, as I mentioned, by the report will be used as a data visualization that will be made available for the public. And for the technical consideration, we are talking about that we presently will use open source software system that we already know they exist, and they were used in all the cases of chatbot creation, as we mentioned in the chatbot, etc. I didn't mention here the benchmark of the other chatbot, but we know the cases of Maru chatbot, that was a very interesting chatbot prototype that was a mix of European and Asia organization. Also, there is the case of Violet chatbot in Mexico. In Chile, we have also the system of Acoso Online that in this moment is inactive. And they have a first prototype of chatbot that give more than receive cases, the information that more than report cases, etc. The considerations also include some data privacy, of course, approximation in the idea that, of course, all this information will be anonymized. So finally, I want to give the next step, or the work plan that we have for this. Well, the first one, of course, is that we want to, of course, continue seeking the funding to development of the design and development of the chatbot. Also, we want to enhance all the possibility that give us this research, to have a team of collaborators specialized in the development and design of the chatbot. We want to create also alliance and cooperation with all the civil society that participate in our research. Particularly, we have the opportunity to work more closely with the National Center for the Artificial Intelligence, then also to Jocelyn Dusan, that also help us with all the technological aspect that you are going to see. And of course, we want to try to convert, to turn this research into a paper, but also we are going to give the feedback to all the organization and the women that help us to through all this process. And finally, also we want to thank all the FAIR network, to Jaime, to Paola, to Caitlin, for all your support, all the conversations, because this project, of course, what changed and help us to understand how we can create this very base phase one prototype, a tool that will give us the opportunity to give a solution, a kind of solution for all this problematic. So thank you very much again. And here is Daniela also, sorry, but part of our team is outside. So thanks again for all your support. And of course, we want to continue to the next step.